Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we end up completing this mission and this mission in the Void Crusade after having to restart, but now we can continue and we'll go this way. Nah, I'm not gonna put tarot cards in. I don't feel like getting pummeled to death. Ooh, bonus damage against Eldar. I really hope there's Eldar in here somewhere. This is gonna be kinda useless. Actually, I wanna check this. What's this one give? Tyrannid. Okay, that's not bad.
The enemies of the Imperium are infinite, and such a vast threat can only be fought with ingenuity. Kill the Masters, and you will render a sea of vermin helpless.
So, if you've been following general 40K news, there's been kind of an event building up, the Arcs of Omen. Recently, last week, they did the Arcs of Omen, I think 5 video, which, it was okay. The last 2 have been kind of meh, just kind of implying some great host of, with sharpened blades, I think, will appear. People are wondering if it's going to be like a mass chaos insurrection, or it could imply just being chaos demons. You know, a bunch of Khorne worshippers, which I really hope it's not Khorne. I'm so tired of just Khorne getting so much attention. It's not Tzeentch, unfortunately. I know it isn't. And it's not Slaanesh, because Slaanesh never gets any support. But there is a cool thing, which is the stuff about Vashtorr, whose name I completely forgot last time I tried talking about him, who runs I think it's the Forge of Souls, and makes like soul grinders. And his whole thing is he essentially draws power from the creation of weapons of war. So he got a bunch of power from the creation of the Necrons, the creation of the Primaris Space Marines. All these different times weapons are made, he gets power from it, which is really cool. And the stuff that's been released kind of implies he wants to go from a demigod effectively to potentially godhood, and I really hope he does. In a perfect world, he would achieve godhood, and then Be'lakor would, and then we just have a 6-man fight going on in chaos, and that'd be great. And realistically, I think it'd be a good idea to ascend Be'lakor, because then we can actually we can remove Malal, or Malice. As much as I love him, we could essentially just remove him and have Be'lakor become new Malice, and then the Sons of Malice and all them retain their uniqueness. It's just, or you could even always say it was Be'lakor, just retcon it hard like that, because the lore with Be'lakor implies he's been leading empires across the galaxy for time immemorial. And so you could just be like, oh, it turns out it's just always been Be'lakor. And all the implications of him being a chaos god, it turns out, oh, it was just erroneous, and he's always just been the way he is. But then have Be'lakor rise up, have Vashtorr rise up. You could easily say, oh, because he'd become like the chaos god of machines. What I would do, move the Iron Warriors over. Because the Iron Warriors, I think of chaos worshippers, would most likely just go to Vashtorr, because he's practically right now a demigod of war machines. The big question becomes, how do you make him unique? What demons does he get? Because the cheapo beepo way would be to say, oh, well, it's just mechanized versions of existing demons, but that looks stupid. A bloodletter with just a bunch of like cybernetic augmentations would be kind of boring. But you could come up with something. It's a challenge, but it's not that hard. And I would just really like it. As I've said before, I think Chaos needs a shakeup, and this would be the perfect shakeup. Because the stuff we've seen, Vashtorr is providing the Arcs of Omen to Abaddon, which are essentially just jacked up Space Hulks. But he's not doing it for free. You think there's a Chaos, any demon of Chaos willing to do things for free out of the goodness of their heart? No, they all have self-interest at the end. So it becomes a matter of what is Vashtorr's goal. And it would also really be cool because it would flesh out this concept that in the end, all chaos, or the warp does allow for other people to ascend to godhood. It's just, it is such a dangerous environment that most don't make it. And I think that unto itself would be cool. It's something 40K will never do, but I'd love to see minor chaos gods. One that might be, like, if you wanted to go, once again, cheapo beepo route, you could make them essentially hybrid classes, effectively, of gods. Oh, there's a chaos demigod of betrayal. Well, he's going to be Zinchi, but also because betrayal can be a very martial thing, a little bit of Khorne. You'd have to find a way to make it unique, but you could do kind of these subclasses, and it'd be interesting, and it would offer a lot of stuff, and it helps kind of divide up some of these domains that the Chaos Gods have, while also retaining them. Oh, hey, would you look at that? It's a demon host. I think. Yep, that's a demon host. Speaking of demon hosts, I actually found one of those in Darktide. A lot spookier. I do like the demon hosts in this game. I wish we would see other than Nurgle ones, because I think it's cool, just this possessed creature, effectively. While the Darktide ones are horned, big, glowy people who will bust you in half in a second. I have had way too many people trigger them like, we can fight this. No one can handle it. I've tried blocking, and that's what you're supposed to do, is block and dodge while your team shoots it. But for some reason, it'll attack someone and the rest of my teams will just panic and just either run away or they just don't shoot. They'll be like, oh man, that's a big problem. Oh, there's a Poxwalker, I should go focus that. It's like, no, kill the thing with the actual boss health bar, please. It is a lot scarier. And I can't block forever. Well, that sucked. All those barrels didn't give me anything. Ah, it's a +1. Oh well. Hey, I got a Archaeotech relic. Place your bets. Is it going to be good or bad? I'm going to guess bad. That's actually not bad at all. The only problem... Okay, I actually don't have a problem. That's my implant. It's one worse... Okay, the movement speed in exposed state is bad. We'll actually save this. I might monkey with it a bit and see if I can re-roll the movement speed, maybe re-roll the inoculator capacity. Because like the 45% max HP gain from attributes is huge. The chance to reset inoculator cooldown on kill, I could even re-roll that if I really felt like it. Same as movement speed when suppression is protected, that's a waste. Honestly, I could re-roll a lot of my current one. But, see, the shield HP regen per second isn't bad, but it's not a lot. I'm talking myself out of it, but loot quantity isn't bad, but I shouldn't be trying to sell myself on one minor trait. I'll just re-roll my current one, honestly. Because I can do a lot of re-rolling on it and probably do some good with it. That's a very small map. And my map says there's nothing important here, so we'll just bonk our way through.
A 100,000 worlds, 100,000 wars. There is no respite. There is nowhere to hide. Across the galaxy, there is only war.
I talked about it last time, but man, I really want a new 40K game. I know Darktide just came out, but like I said, Darktide just sets up an idea for a Destiny-style game so well. And especially when you look at, like, the Dark Millennium stuff. Dark Millennium, it had good ideas, but I think the problem was it's the mix of things. The large scale is both good and bad. It would take a lot of work if you wanted to keep that large scale combat as a PvP mode. Because that would honestly be really cool, having really large scale fights and then having, like, depending on how your fights do, its point values of like, hey, we did this, we earned this many points on this planet, we took over this region this week, and you know, every 4 weeks you go through like a planet effectively. Or I don't know, I'm just trying to think of a way where you can have galactic conflict, or even just look at how this game is with the Caligari sector. Have a sector with a bunch of planets and systems, and you're just duking it out. Because honestly, a lot of a chaos version of classes would just be a mirrored version. Like, oh, you have traitor guardsmen who are just going to be guardsmen, but evil. Otherwise, because there's pros and cons. The problem with doing just a mirrored version is it comes off as really cheap. Oh, your Space Marines and your Chaos Space Marines are effectively the same thing. They just get, you know, Marks of Chaos might be a little bit of a subclass variation. It's like, yeah, but that's kind of how they are. And then that way you'd be able to recycle a lot of the models for, like, Imperial Guard. Both, because if you're playing as Imperial Guard, you would be fighting Traitor Guardsmen. This way you can use those Traitor Guardsmen models as player models as well, and vice versa. I don't know, there's a lot to it. It would take a good amount of time. I think a great game could come of it. It's just time, money, and effort, and whoever would be investing, you'd have to convince them that the game is going to do well. And I think that's always a gamble. You cannot convince someone a game will do well, ever. The only games that do quote-unquote well are like guaranteed franchises like Call of Duty, because even an off year, they still make hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a drop in the bucket. If it's not a smaller game where you actually run the risk of getting shut down. I mean, look at even Saints Row. Saints Row got ragged on hard. And the executives are like, yeah, it didn't meet expectations, but not by much. And I'm sitting there thinking, not by much? Were you expecting to sell as little as you did? Granted, they also, I think, moved that stuff under a new... I think they moved it under Gearbox now, which I think is just going to cause more bloat under Gearbox, which isn't good. And I think that's a whole nether problem, is by just putting more and more crap under a studio that does the thing well, you're kind of dooming everyone, being like, yeah, just copy these guys or just let them take care of it. And admittedly, Gearbox, while they do well with Borderlands, that's kind of all they've done well in a long time. And even then, like, I don't see people singing praises for the... what is it? Tiny Tina's Wonderland? The D&D-esque offshoot game they did. I think that was the title. Shows how little I remember of it. But I didn't see anyone be like, oh, this is a good game. It was a Borderlands game where they stuck, like, crossbow bits on a pistol and said, it's a crossbow. Not much to it. They essentially took the Borderlands 2 Assault on Dragon's Peak DLC and were like, yeah, let's just stretch this into a game. But man, I hope Saber does well. Space Marine 2 better be good. As of recording, we're still a few days out from Game Awards, so I won't know yet, and since I record in batches, next week, those videos, I won't know if we got a release date or an announcement yet. But after that, I will. So I'm either going to be super excited, or not disappointed, but just like, yeah, didn't get a release date. Expected. But man, I'd kill for a release date. Man, I hope they do Tyranids right. It needs to be a horde shooter when it comes to fighting them. Anything less, and I think they've kind of done goofed. Except for Tyranid Warriors. Then they can start making them actual, like, proper one-on-one shooty fights instead of just turning a bunch of little xenomorph monsters into meat paste. One thing I actually didn't like from the original Space Marine was how little you actually dealt with, like, traitor guardsmen. I get they were essentially summoned in, and your bigger focus was just chaos in general, but I really wanted to fight more traitor guard. But I get, if I had my way, there'd be like 5 extra chapters to the game, and there'd be way more demons and all that, because I'd want to put so much extra stuff in. Oh, Trader Guard, and Trader Guard vehicles you'd be fighting. There would be more than just bloodletters. Since Nemeroth was trying to be essentially ascend to demonhood, I'd want to have some underlings you fight.
One last push and the victory is ours.
You know, maybe a dreadnought, stuff like that. But I think that unto itself is kind of the problem of being... You want people who are fans of stuff to make a good thing, but it's hard to be a fan because you know enough that you're like, I want everything. It wouldn't make sense if they didn't have this or that. It all has to show up because it's cool and it would make sense. And then, you know, the reality of development kicks in. Okay, we don't have the budget, we don't have the manpower. We would be delaying this 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, a year. We have to make new environments, we have to do this, that, and the other thing. And you gotta make cuts. That's the unfortunate and tragic reality. Some games, I don't even think cuts were what caused the problem, but others, you could have probably assumed some cuts had to be made, or things like that. I also just really like Trader Guard. I think they look neat. It's one thing I love in Darktide is just fighting through an area and you just see the 3 glowing lights of their helmet, that pale, not even really pale, it's just bright green light, and you're like, oh, someone's here. And then of course, because I only use the bolt gun at this point, you just pop them and turn them into goo. God, the bolt gun is so good. It's absurdly powerful. It's the problem of, I look at the other weapons I pick up and I'm like, I could use it, but bolt gun. Even though it doesn't have sights, it doesn't, I mean, it's got just a little post for irons. It's like, I don't care. Half the time I pop my veteran sharpshooter ability, get increased control, and then just mag dump my 15 rounds. Which is always really funny to do. People will be like, oh man, Ogren! I just swing around the corner, just do. Guy dies, I'm like, yep. Go back to use my power sword to just chop through guys.
Serve the Emperor well, Inquisitor.
Oh, and another thing is they made, praising Fat Shark, they made the bolter sound good. It is meaty. When that thing fires, it's just a nice loud thud. I think that's such a big thing people have to get right in 40k games. Bolters are not a standard assault rifle. Oh yeah, so we'll have to go this way probably. Nothing worth noting for loot. Oh well. But that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button, it helps out the channel a lot. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.